Hi, Matt Lewis from TechView Wealth Advisors, and today we are ranking the 401k plans of the big tech companies known as FANG stocks or FANG companies. Let's talk about that for a minute. FANG. Originally, it stood for Facebook, Amazon, Netflix, and Google, and then Apple was added to the mix. I guess we're supposed to say FANG. And then things got complicated. Companies began changing their names. Facebook is now Meta. Google is Alphabet. What to do? Well, if we have the letter M, how about we bring Microsoft in? And if we have the letter N, let's make room for Nvidia. And we end up with MANNA. Manna, the bread from heaven that God provided to the Israelites in their time of need, a windfall. Our 401k can be a windfall to us in our retirement. So let's stick with this acronym MANNA. Now we have 7 companies. Before we get started, we have this disclaimer, which I highly recommend. I love this disclaimer, but I have read it many times, so I'm moving on. All right, there are 5 criteria we're using to rank the 401ks. The first of which is the most important, and that is the company contribution to your plan. Then we'll look at vesting of that contribution, how quickly you get possession of the company contributions should you leave or be forced to leave. Then we'll look at the Roth feature to 401k plans, the mega backdoor Roth feature, and finally, the breadth of investments possible in your 401k. Before we look at the company matches of our 7 competing companies, let's look at contributions in general. Let's get a bird's eye view. There are 3 buckets of contributions into a 401k. The first of which consists of employee contributions that are deductible against your current income. In other words, they can lower your taxes now. The IRS sets a limit on these. In 2022, that limit was $20,500. Bucket number 2 consists of company contributions. These will vary from company to company. They all have their own formula. Then in bucket number 3, we have employee contributions again, but now they absolutely must be after tax. And if you were to take all of the contributions in aggregate, they could total no more than $61,000 in 2022. This is also a number from the IRS that's updated regularly. If you are age 50 or older, however, you have another $6,500 you could contribute in the bottom bucket, and that would take the aggregate up to $67,500 for 2022. And now for comparing the matching contributions. But first, let's make some assumptions. Let's assume we have an employee making $200,000 a year, a nice round number, and in his second year at the job. There are 2 popular strategies we're going to look at. The first is to contribute just enough to get the full company match. The second is to max out on the deductible contributions that lower your taxes today. All right, up first is Facebook or Meta. Meta will be matching 100% of employee contributions up to $10,250. Let's look at Amazon. Amazon will match 50% of employee contributions up to 4% of base salary. So in our case, that would be $10,000 we contribute. Amazon contributes $5,000. And then let's look at one more company before we cut to the table with all 7 of our firms. Let's look at Apple, because they have a complicated formula. It changes over time based on how long the employee has been with the company. The match could be 50%, 75%, or 100% of the employee contribution up to 6% of base salary. So in our case, we're in year 2, so Apple contributes 50% of our contribution, which is $15,000. We put in $15K, Apple puts in $7,500. And here is our table. In the far right, you can see the column shows how much bang per buck we get from each company. And at the top, we have Meta and Netflix. However, if we look at the next column over, we can see the dollar amounts. Here, the order changes a bit. In the case of Microsoft, and I believe, I can't see it, but I believe it's Alphabet down there. They provide more in contributions than Nvidia, but they require us to put in more to get that full match. Before we leave this strategy, let's change the assumptions just for a moment and assume that we are an employee in year 6. Now Apple is providing 100% match against our contribution. So we're contributing $15,000 and so is the company. This puts Apple in the pole position for this criterion. Now let's move on to strategy 2. Remember, this means we are maximizing the deductible contributions of the employee to lower his taxes in this year. That would be $20,500 in employee contributions. And if we follow this strategy, now at the top of the rankings, we have Meta, Alphabet, and Microsoft. However, let's change the assumptions and just assume for a moment that we are in year 3 of employment. That would put Apple at the top of the rankings because Apple is now matching 75% of the employee's contributions, which are 6% of base pay. So the employee would be contributing $15,000 to Apple's $11,250. Now let's talk about vesting of contributions, the company contributions. There's only one company that doesn't offer immediate vesting, and that would be Amazon. Vesting at Amazon takes place in year 3, and each year is defined as 1,000 years of work, no, 1,000 hours of work. So for full-time employees, that would usually happen, say 2.5 years after starting. And this is how it might unfold. So let's show contributions you are making as the employee of $10,000, that's 4% of your base salary. Amazon makes a 50% match, and then you decide to leave at the end of year 2. Oh no, what's gonna happen? Those contributions are up in smoke, forfeited, and that's how you feel. So, long story short, let's look for immediate vesting in our 401k plan. Now let's see how our companies did with regard to the Roth feature. They did very well. All 7 companies offer a Roth 401k. By the way, these numbers are going to map to the contributions possible with Alphabet, Microsoft, and Meta. So let's assume we are going to maximize our after-tax contributions in this lower box. These are going to be Roth contributions. Why would we want to do that? There's a variety of reasons. One could be that this limit the IRS places on pre-tax deductible contributions also applies to after-tax contributions. So you could put in $20,500 in after-tax money that would never get taxed again if you follow the rules, and you end up with more money in retirement. I think that's pretty compelling. The next box, the employer contribution, the company, mentioned those 3 companies, will make a match of $10,250. Then moving on to the Mega Backdoor Roth, again, more good news. All 7 companies offer this feature. Let's max out our contributions on this slide. That'll be $30,250 we're making in after-tax contributions. Now we're going to remember to convert to the Roth through a Mega Backdoor Roth mechanism before we make any investments, because we don't want to pay taxes on any gains on those investments. Who needs that headache? So we have $61,000 in contributions on this slide, the lion's share of which are after-tax contributions that we have made the employee. If we're 50 years or older, we bump that up by another $6,500. Finally, let's see how our companies did with regard to investment selection in the 401ks they offer. Of our 7 companies, we have 3 offering self-directed brokerage accounts with the ability to buy and sell individual securities. Those are Alphabet, Apple, and Netflix. All right. And then finally, here we are at the finish line, seeing how our companies did. And somebody's got a really slow horse there. Here we have in our table all the criteria presented. We are weighting the company contribution at 65%. We have Meta out in front and Amazon at the very back. Again, we have assumed that we have an employee in year 2. If that employee had been in year 3 or later, Apple would be the winner of this particular race. Then for vesting, we have all companies offering immediate vesting except for Amazon, again a laggard here. Then we have the Roth and the Mega Backdoor Roth. We are not weighting them because all 7 companies offer these features in their 401k. And then finally, we have investment selection, 3 horses, 3 companies out in front, those being Apple, Alphabet, and Netflix. We tally up all the numbers, and then on the next page, we can see how they did in our class. We'll convert to letter grades. So we have Meta, Apple, and Alphabet with A's. We've got Netflix, Microsoft, and Nvidia with B's, and you guessed it, Amazon has a C here. All right, I hope you found that useful, entertaining. If you have any questions or feedback, please reach out to me by email, or if you want to have a conversation, I'd love to meet you. You can use the Calendly link below. If you have any colleagues, friends, family who would find this information interesting, please send them a link to this presentation. And I thank you very much. Look forward to having a conversation with you.